Okay, great. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. My name is Shelly, and I am a physiotherapist and a staff member at Parkinson Society BC. Some of you might know me from my previous webinars, but this is our first freezing class. So welcome and thanks for joining us. So the class today is going to start in sitting, and then we're going to move to a standing position and then come back to sitting before we finish the class. Now, today during the class, hopefully you can hear me and you can see me. If not, sometimes on your screen there might be a little audio button that says click for audio. So click on the screen and you should be able to get audio. And if at any point the video freezes or the sound freezes, you can always try refreshing the page. It sounds very simple, but that usually does fix most of the freezing problems or any audio and video problems. So there is a chat box in the webinar room here today, which should be on your right-hand side. If you don't see it, it might be in a little collapse icon at the bottom of the screen. And then if you click on that, it should open up the chat box. And the chat box is where you're going to be typing any of your questions or if you want to communicate with us. Of course, during the exercise class, I won't be able to read the chat box because I'll be moving with you, but I do have my colleague, Alana Dillon, who is going to be monitoring the chat box for us. So if you did have any questions, she can try to answer those questions. Or at the end of our class today, I'll come forward into the screen and you can ask me any questions that you may have that might be more specific to the exercises. So today you're not going to need any equipment other than 2 chairs. So 1 chair to sit in, and then you're going to need a second chair, which you can see, on the side here that I placed. It's just so when we stand up to do our standing exercises, I'm going to ask you to have 1 chair on either side, just for a little bit of a visual target, which we'll talk about. And you can probably see I've got a little purple block here. So you do need something to step over during the class today for our standing section. And it doesn't need to be anything fancy. It can be a tissue box. It can be, I don't know, a box of cereal or something that is slightly higher off the ground that you can step over. Or if you don't have any of that, you can get a scarf or a rope and place it on the floor as a line. That's absolutely fine as well. It's just so we use something visual to help us with some of these exercises today. The class today is recorded and it will be recorded for the rest of the series as well. So if you did want to visit the class in the future for any reason, you can of course go to our YouTube channel or onto our website and you can review the videos in the future if you'd like. I did pin at the very top of our chat box today our email address. So if you did want to contact us in the future, you can. The email is info@parkinson.bc.ca at the top of the chat box. So you can feel free to save that email if you would like to contact us in the future. Okay, well, let's get started then. Hopefully you can hear me and you can see me and you've sorted out any of the audio issues you may have. I'm going to move back towards my chair now. So just follow along today. And the purpose of today's class, given that it's a freezing class, we're going to be targeting a lot on our step symmetry. So our ability to be able to weight shift and take steps as evenly as possible and lifting our feet off the floor as high as possible. So the focus of today is not on how fast you can do something. So the slower, the better for today's class, because we really want to just be focusing on the technique of the movement and your ability to lift the legs and step the legs out and those kind of things. So you'll see a bit of a theme today. There'll be lots of weight shifting type activities we're going to be doing. And then when we stand up a little bit later on, you have the choice to do a dual task challenge if you would like, which I'll explain a little bit as we go on. Okay, well, I'm going to move back now. Hopefully you can see me. We're going to be starting in our chair. And we're just going to move forward in our chair a little bit so that way you can get your feet flat onto the floor. And we want to make sure we're not leaning back into the chair or slouching to the side, but you want to make sure you're sitting right over those sit bones. So you can wiggle around if you would like, just to make sure you're right over those sitting bones, sitting up nice and tall, chest up, head towards the ceiling. From here, we're going to start with a bit of a gentle stretch just to get our body going. We're going to cross the arms and sweep them up overhead. And then you're going to open them out to the side in a sort of a tilted diagonal position, keeping your breastbone forward. Good. Coming back to the middle. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Sweep those arms up overhead. Keeping that chest forward, we're going to tip to the other side to feel a little bit of a stretch down the side of our body. And back to the middle. We'll do that again. Sweep the arms up overhead, opening the chest, opening the arms, tipping to the side, chest open and lower. Good. And again to the other side. Sweep those arms up. And we tip to the side, feeling that stretch on the side of your body. Good. Let's do one more each side. Sweeping those arms up overhead, tipping to one side, and lowering the arms down. Let's do one more on the other side. Sweeping those arms up, tipping to the side. Good. And lowering back down. This time, you're going to walk those hips back in the chair such that your lower back is touching the back of the chair. And this time, you're going to place your hands behind your head, opening those elbows out to the side. You're going to lean back in the chair and arch that back over the chair here to feel a stretch in your upper back, opening those arms, opening the chest. Holding it here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and coming back to the middle, lowering the arms. Let's do that one more time. Bring those hands behind the head, shoulders down, opening the elbows. We're going to lean back into the chair, opening that chest for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and lowering back down. Good. We're going to shuffle forwards in the chair again. Have the feet flat on the floor. This time, you're going to take your hand and place it on the outside of the opposite knee. And your other hand is going to try to reach around to the chair. You're going to sit up nice and tall, and you're going to use your hands to twist your upper body around, sitting up as tall as you can for our stretch here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and back to the middle. Good. Same thing, other side, taking your hand to the outside of the opposite knee. Your other hand is going to reach around to touch the chair, sit up tall, and we're going to twist our body over, using those arms to pull you around a bit more, almost like you're reaching the breastbone to the back of the room for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and rest. Good. This time, we're going to place our hands onto our hips, sitting up nice and tall, feet flat on the floor. We're going to hinge forward at the hips, keeping your neck nice and long, your spine nice and long, chest up. We're going to hinge forward at the hips as far as you can without collapsing on your legs. And then we're going to shift back, lean back as far as you can without the legs coming off the floor and without collapsing into our chair. Same thing, hinging forward and back. Good, well done. Keep going as far as you can each way, really weight shifting on those sit bones. You're leaning forward, sitting on the very front of your sit bones, and then you're shifting that weight back to the very back of your sit bones. keeping your feet flat onto the floor, shoulders down, neck nice and long, spine nice and long in your own time. Good. Let's do 3 more here. Using your trunk muscles to shift your weight forwards and back over those sitting bones. Good. 2 more. Well done. Let's do 1 more here. Good, and coming back to the middle. For our next one, if you like a bit of a challenge, you're going to have your legs in together like so, where your knees and your feet are together. Or if you think this might be too challenging, you can keep those legs open. I'll show you what we're doing. So we're keeping those legs together if you can, keeping those hands on your hips, still sitting up nice and tall, so no slouching, sitting up nice and tall, squeezing those inner thighs together. You're going to move your entire body in one unit from side to side. So notice as I lean this way, my hip is off the chair, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So notice here how as I'm leaning, I'm using my whole body to move. So this movement here is very different to this. Can you see that this is not what we want to do? So we don't want to be leaning like this. We want to keep our body nice and straight, and you're using your hips to move side to side, like you're lifting each hip off the chair. Good. So of course, with the legs together, it's a little bit more difficult. If you think that's too hard, have your legs apart, but same thing, trying to lift the hip up like so without falling over, right? Trying to control the tummy muscles here. Keep going. I'm going to bring those legs in together. Good. Still sitting up nice and tall. Really trying to shift the weight. Find your balance here as you're lifting each hip off the chair. Good. Let's do 1 more each side. Good, and rest. Okay, now everyone's going to bring their legs together. If you can, squeezing those inner thighs together. You're going to place those hands across your chest, or if you can't go across your chest, just hold your arms in so that they're not touching anything. We're going to sit up nice and tall, and you're going to imagine that you've got a little flashlight at the top of your head and it's pointing up at the ceiling. Using that flashlight at the top of your head, you're going to write your name on the ceiling by moving your trunk. So you're keeping your body nice and tall, spine nice and long, no slouching. You're going to use your whole body, moving at the hips, to write your first and last name, imagining you're using that light coming out of the top of your head at the ceiling, and you're writing your name on the ceiling with those knees still squeezing in together, the whole body moving as a unit. So notice here how my trunk is nice, straight, and I'm moving the whole body as a unit, hinging from the hips, and it's very different to doing this. So see how here, this is not what I want to do. I don't want to be using my back to move, but I want to keep my spine nice and long, and I'm using the whole body. So essentially, you're shifting weight over your sit bones in order to write your name on the ceiling with the top of your head. Good. And if you have a really short name like I do, you can do it a second time around. So your first and last name, you can do it 2 times or even 3 times if you like. And as we're doing this, it's not about speed. So I don't want you to do it as quick as you can, but instead, I want you to write the name as big as you can using your torso. So we're not curving from our back, right? But we're moving the whole body as a unit so that your sit bones are lifting off the chair every so often, depending on where you're moving. Good. So we'll just finish off with whichever name you're on now, whether it's the first or last name. Good. And then we rest those arms down. We're now going to transition to our standing position. So I'm going to turn my chair sideways. You stay where you are. I'm going to turn my chair sideways so you can see me. We're going to practice standing, and we're going to go nice and slow. If you need your walker in front of you, or a chair or a table in front of you to hold on to, by all means, please do. So what we're going to do here is we're going to shuffle to the front of our chair, have our feet flat onto the floor. And the rocking motion we did earlier, where we keep our spine nice and tall and we're hinging at our hips, we're going to do that again. So you can place your hands onto your chair or onto the arms of the chair, whatever you have. And you're going to imagine that someone's grabbed you at the front of your shirt and they're pulling you forward. So you want to bring your chest forward over your feet, so your breastbone over your feet. And imagine someone's pulling you forward even more so you can shift your weight to the middle of your feet. And then from here, I want you to push down into the floor as hard as you can. Push the floor away from you. Squeeze those bum cheeks in order to stand. You can hold on to your walker or a table or whatever you have in front of you if you need. Standing nice and tall, squeezing the bottom cheeks and tucking that tailbone underneath. And then we're going to send the hips back, bend the knees, and sit down nice and slow again. Please feel free to do this in your own time, so you don't have to do it at my speed if you want to do it slower. Same thing again. We're weight shifting. We're bringing our chest forward over our feet, making sure that we've got our weight, our center of gravity right over our feet, and then we're pushing the feet into the floor as hard as you can, pushing the floor away from you in order to stand, tucking that tailbone right underneath, standing up as tall as you can, chest up, shoulders down. And then we're going to sit back down again, bringing your weight over your feet as you're sitting back down. So the most important thing here is to practice shifting your weight over your feet, because a lot of the times when we try to stand, what happens is we lean forward, but then as soon as we stand, we have our weight behind our feet, and then we have a really tough time trying to pull ourselves up. So instead of pulling ourselves up, you want to push yourself forward off the chair. Let's try that again. Nice and slow. Chest over your feet. And you want to shift that weight forward so that you've got your weight right between your feet. Then you're going to push the floor away from you as hard as you can, sticking that bottom cheek underneath, making sure your weight is over your legs. Good. And then we're going to sit down again, nice and slow, keeping your weight over your feet in order to sit down. Good. Well done, everybody. Last one, last stand. We're going to remain standing. Let's try that again. Bring your weight over your legs, making sure you've got the weight between your feet. Push the feet down into the floor as hard as you can. Tuck that tailbone underneath to be in a standing position. Now, stay where you are. You're going to keep standing. I'm just going to move these chairs over so you can see me. Okay, so in standing, you can hold on to either a walker, chairs like I've got, or a table, or anything else you've got nearby, just to make sure we're keeping our balance and we're not going to fall over. So first thing we're going to do here is I want you to have a look at whatever object you're holding on to, whether it's your walker, your table, your chairs, and you're going to march on the spot slowly, not fast, and we're going to try to get the knee to match the height of whatever object you're holding on to. So if you got chairs like me, you're going to try to lift your knees up as high as you can to match the chair. So you're going to bring your knees up to the top of the chair or the table or the walker. And we're doing this nice and slow. And you'll probably notice that one of your legs is not really lifting as high as the other one. So I want you to try to get both knees even as much as possible. Lifting both knees up to be the same height as the object you're holding onto. And as we're doing this, we're keeping those shoulders down, right? And we're standing up nice and tall, trying to get those knees to match the height of the chair or the table you're holding onto. Getting both of those knees nice and even. Doesn't have to be fast. March in your own speed, whatever is comfortable for you, as long as you're lifting those knees up nice and high, both knees, not just one, but you want both the knees to go up nice and high. You want them to be even. Good, keep going. Trying to make sure we're not crash landing when we lift our knee, right? But we want to place them down softly. Good. So you'll probably see here, as I'm doing this marching, I'm shifting my weight from side to side in order to transfer my weight to the standing leg to free up my other leg to lift. So that's very normal, and hopefully you should have a shift too. And hopefully you're not just gripping and trying to stay in the middle like this. You want to stay up nice and tall, shift your weight over to lift the knee. Please feel free to go at your own speed. You don't have to go at the same speed as me. And of course, same thing, if you find that this is a little bit too easy and you want to go faster, by all means, please feel free to march faster as long as both your knees are lifting up nice and high and they're even, right? So I don't want to see this where one leg is going up but the other leg is not. So you want them to be as equal as possible. Good. Let's do last 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and come to stillness. Good. Okay, next, we're going to take our little object you've got, so either a scarf for the floor, a tissue box, or something you've got. You're going to place it down in front of you, not too close. So placing it, if I turn sideways, probably this far away from myself. And you're going to now that we've warmed up the legs in our march, we're going to now practice stepping over the object. Maybe let me move back a bit so you can see me better. So you're going to practice lifting up your knees nice and high like we just practiced, lifting to match the chair or the table, and you're going to step over the object. And then you're going to lift that same leg up to match the height of the chair or the table and bring it back, okay? So if I turn sideways, if you find that the object is way too far away and you're hitting it every time, then you might want to bring it a little bit closer so you don't have to take as big of a step, but you do want to try and lift that knee as high as you can to clear the object, and then the same leg that just went is going to lift up nice and high again to step back. So a lot of times we'll do a nice lift stepping forward, but coming back we'll do this, right? So we want to make sure that both the forward and the backward step are even. You want both of them to be nice and high. So just like we practiced, get your knee up to match the height of the chair, right? With every step. Match the height of the chair with every step, making sure we're not stepping on the target. Try not to touch it. Same thing, other side. So we're going to keep alternating legs, getting both legs even. If you notice how one leg is dragging a little bit more than the other, then we're going to pay a little bit more attention to that leg, okay? Trying to get that knee up as high as you can to match the object you're holding onto for balance. And same thing, when you bring that leg back, you're lifting up as high as you can to match the object. So we're really working on symmetry here, and your ability to lift and step over an obstacle, and your ability to weight shift. So there's a lot that goes into even a movement like this without us even thinking about it. So we really want to get the knees up nice and high, step over the object, knee nice and high to step back. And by all means, don't have to follow my speed. Please do this in a speed that works for you, that's comfortable for you. Because the goal here is we want to lift the knee up as high as possible, clearing the obstacle on the floor and making sure both legs are even. So that's more important than speed here. I don't want you to go as fast as you can. Please, by all means, go slower, okay? A little bit more control. And actually, going slower is probably going to be more challenging because when you step forward over the object, if you can hold this position for a few seconds before lifting that leg back, you'll find that you're really fighting for balance as you're standing in this open leg position. Good, well done, everybody. If you're tired, you can have a rest if you would like. We're gonna do last 4 here. Good, last 3. Last 2, still lifting those knees high, going forward and backwards, right? Not just lifting the knees for the forward step only, but backwards as well. Last 1. Good, and rest. Okay, we're going to remove that object off the floor now. You can put it beside you. We're gonna use it again a little bit later. Now, I know that when you sign up for the class, we wrote in the description that you should ideally have 2 chairs. So hopefully you have something that you can have on either side of you. If not, you can have a wall beside you and a chair or something like that as well. We're looking for 2 targets beside you. Now, we're going to practice our turning. So we're going to stand with the legs a little bit wider than what you would normally do. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to weight shift on the spot. So as you're standing here, I want you to imagine you're a palm tree, maybe somewhere sunny and beautiful, or maybe somewhere a little bit closer to home. But you're going to imagine you're a palm tree and it's very windy. It's a very, very windy day, and you're going to be swaying in the wind, going to be swaying side to side in the wind. So imagine that quality of the palm tree leaves as they go side to side. That's who you're gonna, or what you're gonna imagine being today. You're gonna think about that swaying, and you're gonna reproduce that swaying motion in your body. Noticing here, I'm swaying side to side, getting my body towards each object on either side. So that's how far you should be swaying. You can move the objects a little bit further away to get a bigger sway if you can. But the idea here, we're not walking, we're not moving anywhere. We're just swaying on the spot. But you're trying to get the sway to be as big as possible, such that you're shifting weight over your legs. Good. So if you're having issues with this, or you feel like you're freezing, or your legs are just going way too fast, imagine that palm tree again. Really think about yourself as that tall palm tree swaying in the wind. Good. Very nice. Keep going, thinking about that swaying quality. And you want to think about how big the palm tree is, how heavy the wind is, and you're really trying to sway as far as you can towards either side. Getting your shoulder or your hip or your body to touch each of the objects that you've got on either side of you, making that sway as big as possible. Now, the reason we're doing swaying here is because a lot of the times when you get a little bit frozen, when you're either taking a step or when you're turning or going through a doorway, it's a really good strategy for you to, rather than concentrate on, okay, I really need to walk, I need to get the leg forward, but the leg is stuck. But instead, you can actually try a different kind of motion like this. You can distract your body in a way to do a different kind of movement that still gets you to weight shift, so that eventually, when you're doing this swaying movement, maybe you're approaching a door, maybe you're in the doorway as you're doing this, but it helps you weight shift enough to then be able to weight shift and take steps forward. Rather than doing your generic steps forward, you're doing a different type of traveling movement that gets you over the threshold of the door or whatever environment you're in when you start freezing. So let's keep going with the sway here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to keep the sway going. Really think about how far you're swaying in the wind. And as we're doing this, we're going to start to turn the swaying movement, just being a bit careful because, of course, you might need to hold on to something. But I don't want you to think about your turning. Don't think about your stepping to turn, but instead I want you to think about being blown by this wind and you're swaying side to side. So yes, even though we're turning, I don't want you to focus on taking steps to turn. Instead, I want you to think about the swaying quality of that palm tree in the wind. Good. And feel free to do this slow. You don't have to do this fast. When you've done one turn, you're going to try doing the same thing, turning the other direction. Really thinking about swaying quality. Don't think about your legs turning. Instead, thinking about yourself being blown by this wind and you're swaying with this wind. If you're finding that your legs are getting stuck and you're starting to feel a little bit anxious about this, don't worry. Stop wherever you are. Keep your feet planted on the floor. Just take a deep breath in. And then maybe do a couple of other things, like maybe bend your knees and straighten your knees a few times. And then when you're ready, you're going to just sway again. Just sway on the spot, making the sway bigger and bigger. And then eventually the sway will be big enough for you to weight shift, and then you can continue on with your turn. So don't worry if you're starting to get a little bit frozen in the turn. It's absolutely fine. You can just always stop, keep your legs on the same spot, bend your knees a few times, and then go back to the sway. So it's really important that we're not feeling anxious or frustrated with our freezing, because actually the more frustrated you feel, the worse your freezing is going to get. So it's really important to remain calm. We're going to keep going with a swaying turn. Just a few more times. So please feel free to do this in your own time. Don't do it fast if you can't. I'd rather you go slow, because what you'll find is sometimes the quicker you go, the worse your freezing gets. So I'd rather you do this slower and really use that imagery of palm trees swaying in the wind. And of course, if you need a break, please feel free to take a break. For those who are continuing with the swaying and the turn, please make sure you're doing both sides, right? So we're not just turning one way, because otherwise we'll get a bit dizzy. So make sure you're turning in both directions if you can. And we're just going to finish off with whatever turn you're on right now. Taking your time, no rush. So just finishing off with whatever swing you're on right now, whatever turn direction you're on. And then we're going to sway on the spot for a little bit longer to wait for everybody to join us. Great. And then we're going to find some stillness. Good. Okay, so now we're going to take our object again. We're going to take our little block or tissue box or whatever you were using before, and we're going to add those things together. Let me move these chairs. So, do you remember we had the box down on the floor and we were practicing lifting our knees up as high as we can to step over the object, and then we step back, and then we did the same thing on the other side, and then we did the turning. So we're going to add those things together. So have a look here, holding on to either object, and holding onto an object on either side of you, whether it's a chair, a table, a walker, or something you've got. And you're going to place the object in front of you, lift that knee up as high as you can. You're going to step over the object, hold it for a few seconds here so you can find that balance. And then you're going to take your back leg, lifting it as high as you can to step over the object as well. So now you're in front of the object. From here, you're going to imagine that palm tree swaying in the wind, and you're going to sway side to side, really thinking about the wind carrying you and swaying to turn around to face the object again. And then when you've done that, you're going to now use your other leg to step forward over the object, Hold this position for a few seconds, then have your back leg also lift up nice and high, step over the object, and then you're going to sway side to side again, thinking about that palm tree swaying in the wind in order to turn around. So if I go sideways so you can see me, I'm just going to move the chairs for a second so you can see me. So I've got the object on the floor here. So you're going to hold on to the chairs or the tables, step over the object, nice high step, as wide as you can with the step, hold the split leg balance for a few seconds, then the back leg is also going to lift up as high as you can to step over, and then we do our swaying of the palm tree in order to turn. And then when you've turned, your other leg is going to now go forward, lifting the knees as high as you can, hold the split leg balance for a few seconds, then the back leg is going to lift as high as you can to step over, and then again you're swaying to turn, okay? So let's try that. I'm going to just use one chair so you can see me, because otherwise the chair will block the view a little bit. So in your own time, you're going to practice lifting up that leg, stepping over the object, holding the split leg balance for a few seconds, taking the back leg, lifting up as high as you can to step over, trying your best not to touch the object, and then thinking about the palm tree swaying in the wind in order to turn. Think about the palm tree swaying in the wind to turn. Taking your time, you don't have to go fast. Whenever you get to the other side, same thing on the other leg leading this time. So the object here that you're using, it doesn't necessarily have to be a very tall object, but the idea is you're imagining the object is very tall. So you're trying to get the leg up as high as you can. So like what we talked about before, working on lifting both knees, not just one, as high as you can, and trying to get the steps to be as symmetrical as possible. And then we're using imagery here to help us turn. And then you're doing the same thing the other side, emphasizing on the high knees coming up and over the object, going nice and slow so you can really hold your balance here. Of course, holding on as you need. And don't worry if you're finding that your legs are starting to freeze in the turning or in the stepping over the object. Remember what we talked about. You want to try to be as calm as you can. If you're really struggling and your legs are really frozen on the spot, don't worry. Stop trying to move your legs. Keep them there. Take a few deep breaths. Bend your knees a few times and then restart. And the idea of having a physical object on the floor is so that you can really concentrate on the object with your visions. You're using your eyes to see the object, and you're using that as a cue for yourself to step over, because what you'll find is it's a lot easier to step over something that's actually in front of you versus just me telling you to lift your knees up really high when you step. Good, well done everybody. Keep going. Let's do one more. You can finish off with one more round of this, and then we can do something else. Good, well done everybody. Remember when you're turning, you're thinking about that palm tree swaying in the wind, pulling you around. Good. And we'll come to a rest. Okay. How are we all doing? Still with me? Okay. So I'm just moving my chairs back so you can see me. Okay, this time, your object that you have, you're going to place it on the floor beside you this time, not in front of you. And we're going to do the same lifting of the knee, stepping over the object, but this time we're going sideways. So you're going to lift the knee as high as you can, step over the object as wide as possible, so your other leg can lift as high as possible and come down as well. So you want to have room for both of your feet. So you can see my object is here, Using my legs, lifting as high as I can, stepping as wide as I can, holding this position for a few seconds, and then lifting that second leg up as high as I can to step over, okay? So making sure that it's not just our first knee lifting up high, we want the second knee to also lift up really high as you step over. If you're getting a little bit stuck with lifting the legs, think about reaching your knees up to match the height of the chair or the table that you're holding onto. Or maybe there's something in front of you, like your television is on the wall in front of you. Think about lifting the knee to match the height of the television. So use some kind of visual cue you've got in your home to help you lift that knee up nice and high. Good. Notice here how I'm going nice and slow as well. So you don't have to go fast. The most important thing is the object that you're stepping over should not move at all. So you shouldn't be accidentally kicking or stepping or touching the object. So the object should stay exactly where it is from beginning to end. Of course, please hold on if you need, and go nice and slow if you need. And if you find that your feet are getting frozen and you're starting to get frustrated, don't worry. Keep your feet on the spot. Take a few deep breaths. Keep your feet grounded into the floor. Do a couple of knee bends. And then when you're ready, start again. Good job, everybody. Making sure we're lifting those knees nice and high, not just the first leg stepping over the object, but the second leg as well. Good. Let's do 2 more in your own time. Making sure they're good repetitions though, keeping those knees nice and high. Good, well done. Good, and you can stop when you are ready. Okay. So we're now going to do a little bit of a dual task challenge. I'm going to move one of my chairs away actually so you can see me. So do you remember the exercise we did earlier where we stepped forward over the object and then we lifted the leg nice and high to step back, and then we did the same thing on the other side? So we're going to stick with this movement now. So what I'm doing here, this is the movement we're going to do. And as we're doing this movement of stepping over, lifting our legs nice and high, and lifting our knees nice and high, stepping back, we're going to add in a cognitive task. So now you're going to verbally say, or you can think in your head if you don't want to say out loud, you're going to name objects that you can find in your home, starting from the letters A all the way to Z. So, for example, as I'm holding on and I'm doing this movement, I'm going to start from the letter A and I'm going to name objects that I can find in my house and move down the alphabet. So for example, I might say apple, bed, couch, door, I don't know what I can think for E, elephant painting. Yeah, so things like that. You're trying to name as many objects you can find in your home, so your current home, not just a home, in your current home, naming as many objects as you can, starting from the letter A all the way to Z. And as you're doing this, you want to make sure that your legs are still moving nice and high, so you don't want to be stopping to think, right? And you don't want to be accidentally kicking the object over now because we're distracted. But you want to try to practice dividing your attention between a physical task that we're doing now and the cognitive task that you're thinking about. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to stop talking now so you can concentrate on doing the movement while naming as many objects or things or people even as you can think about that are in your home right now, from the letters A all the way to Z. Okay, so I'll give you a few minutes to do this. Keep moving as you're thinking. Keeping those knees nice and high. Both legs even as you're thinking. Well done, everyone. Keep going. If you're really stuck on a letter, you can skip that letter and go to the next one down the alphabet. But you want to make sure you're keeping those legs moving, right? Keeping those knees lifting nice and high as you're thinking. Well done, everybody. Let's go for another 40 seconds here. Getting both knees up as high as you can, stepping over the object. So even as we're thinking, we're not losing our physical form, right? Well done, everyone. Last little bit. Let's do last 15 seconds. Keep thinking about those objects from the letter A to Z. Naming them out loud if you can. Keep the legs going. Good, and let's stop there. Well done, everybody. You can put the object away. We're now going to have a sit down. Now, before we sit down, remember what we talked about earlier, putting your weight right over your legs. Bend those knees, send the hips back, slowly have a sit down. Good, I'm going to move my chair back a little bit. Good, how was that? Hopefully you're still with me. Well done, everybody. We're going to finish with a bit of a stretch for our body in a sitting position. So it's your break time. So after all of that standing and thinking, we're going to place our hands on our hips and we're going to straighten one leg forward. Let me turn sideways actually so you can see me better. You stay where you are. I'm just going to turn sideways so you can see me. Straighten one leg out in front of you, so you'll need to sit at the front of the chair. The leg is straight, and you're going to keep your body nice and tall. You're going to use the opposite hand to the leg. You're going to sweep down and back, and then you're going to switch legs. So as you're doing this movement here, you should feel a bit of a stretch at the back of that thigh, the thigh that's straight. And we're doing this nice and slow, leaning that chest down, and sweeping the opposite arm back to help stretch the back of the leg there. Really important that we don't curve our back. You're trying to keep it up as straight as you can. Good, let's do two more. Last one. Good, okay, let me turn to face you again. Now, you're going to sit with your legs nice and wide apart, body up straight, hands on your hips. You're going to hinge forward at the hips, leaning forward, so almost like you're bringing your breastbone towards the floor without curving your spine. And as you're doing this, you should feel a stretch on your inner thigh. And you can put your hands on your knees and push down into those hands, so pushing down into those hands as well to feel a little bit of a deeper stretch in your inner thigh there for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and coming back up. Okay, Now, we're going to sit back a little bit in our chair, but still having the feet flat on the floor, not leaning back. We're going to take our hand, we're going to bring it to the outside of the opposite knee. Your other hand is going to reach around to grab hold of the chair, sitting up nice and tall. We're going to rotate the body once more, bringing that breastbone towards the back wall, stretching that trunk, holding it for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and coming back around. Good. Same thing, other side, hand to your opposite knee. Other hand reaching for the chair, sitting up nice and tall and rotating around. Breastbone to that back wall if you can for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and coming back around. Okay, this time we're going to bring our hands up behind our head, opening those elbows, keeping your chest and shoulders forward. You're going to bring your elbow, one of your elbows down towards your hip without the arm coming off your head. So you're keeping your hands behind the head and you're leaning over to the side, almost like you're bringing the elbow towards the hip, making sure we're not collapsing forward, but we're keeping our shoulders open and our breastbone facing forward. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and coming back up. Same thing on the other side. Chest open, shoulders down, leaning to the side, bringing the elbow towards the hip for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, coming back up. Keeping your hands behind your head, you're going to use your body to shuffle back in the chair so that your lower back is touching the chair. And you're going to lean into the back of the chair here, over the chair so you can feel that stretch in your upper back, opening the chest for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and coming back up. Drop those arms. One more time. Reach them behind the head, opening the elbows, lean back over the chair. Being careful, of course, not to tip the chair backwards too much, but you're stretching the upper back, opening that chest for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and coming back to the middle. Relaxing those arms down. And we're going to sweep those arms up overhead and circle them back to the middle. Good. Again, breath in. And out. One more breath in. And out. And rest. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. That is the end of our class. I'm going to come forward so that way I can see any of your comments if you have questions, but hopefully that was an enjoyable class and hopefully that wasn't too difficult. But as you can see, for things that help with freezing, it tends to be step symmetry. It tends to be things like doing movements slower, but in better form, practicing weight shifting, that sort of activity. So you've seen a lot of that today. So hopefully it's a good introduction to the rest of the series. And you'll see that we'll be doing a little bit more dual tasking as we go on in the series as well, because it's one of the issues with freezing is that it's not just a physical issue. It's actually more a cognitive issue than anything. It's your brain's inability to divert attention to multiple things in one go. So essentially multitasking. So a lot of the times in our series, you'll see we're going to be doing some dual task challenges where you're trying to do a cognitive task while also trying to keep up your physical abilities as much as possible. So thank you very much for joining us. If you do have any feedback, we would love to hear from you. So please either drop us an email or you can write in the chat box if you like. It's really helpful, the feedback that you give, to help us direct our classes in the future. Because as you can see from today's class, this was actually a suggestion from somebody who attended our previous classes who wanted some freezing type exercises. So Hopefully that was helpful. Thank you for your lovely comments. I can see that you've enjoyed the class, so thank you very much. And I will see you all next week. Okay, so same place, same time, and we'll continue on with our freezing class. So do write down our email if you want to contact us, info@parkinson.bc.ca, which is at the very top of the chat box. Again, my name is Shelly, and thank you guys so much for joining us, and I will see you all next week. I hope you have a lovely day and a lovely weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.